Please like this, subscribe, and follow this channel, Ladora70, for more stories like this one. His hand gripped the edge of the counter. My fingers clung to the fabric of his shirt. I could still feel the dryer vibrating at my back, humming beneath us, muffled by our breath. His lips were on my neck, slow, wet, hesitant, then surer. He didn't rush, and I didn't stop him. My thighs tightened around him out of instinct, not decision. Everything about the moment felt like it belonged in a dream, or a memory, or a mistake that hadn't been made yet. His breath was in my ear now, uneven, hot, like mine. I let my head fall back against the cabinet. I let him see all of me. It wasn't rough or desperate. It was quiet, too quiet, like we were both afraid the silence might shatter if we spoke. And maybe that's why it happened the way it did. Not with frenzy or force, but with that aching, terrible kind of slowness that feels like it's lasting forever and ending too soon at once. When he pulled back, his fingers stayed on my hip, like a promise. Or a goodbye. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. Because what do you say when you've just crossed a line with your daughter's fiancé? What do you call a moment like that, when guilt hasn't caught up yet, but you know it's coming? We both just stood there, listening to our breath, to the soft tick of the washer below us winding down. I could still feel where his hands had been. I still wanted them there. Maybe that's the worst part. You want to know how it started? It didn't begin with a kiss. It began with how he looked at me when no one else did. That night, hours earlier, we had passed in the hallway. He was walking back from the guest shower, towel around his waist, still dripping from steam. I barely glanced, but my body noticed. The lean muscles in his chest, the faint trail disappearing beneath the towel's edge. I noticed everything I shouldn't have. Later, past midnight, I crept into the kitchen. Couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts. Too much quiet. I stood barefoot on the cool tile, fumbling for tea I didn't want. Then I heard him. Footsteps. Logan. My daughter's fiancé. I didn't turn around, just felt him step closer, then closer, until his breath was behind me. Warm. Steady. Just grazing my shoulder blade. Couldn't sleep either, he said. His voice was hoarse from tiredness, or maybe restraint. It poured through me like something heavier than words. No, I said. I tried to sound casual, but my throat tightened around it. He moved beside me, opened the fridge, and poured water into a glass. I could hear every sound, the clink of the jug, the swallow of his throat. His presence filled the room more than the light. I turned to speak. We bumped. Not a big bump, but enough that my chest brushed his arm. Enough that my hand landed briefly against the flat plane of his stomach. Warm, smooth, bare. I froze. He did too. I looked up. His grey eyes locked onto mine, and stayed there too long. His jaw tightened, then softened. His breath slowed. Mine didn't, he whispered. Sorry. But I knew he wasn't. And God help me, neither was I. Please like and subscribe to the channel Ladora70 if this story has made your breath catch too. He didn't move. And neither did I. The space between us suddenly became unbearable, not because of how close we were, but because of how much closer we could have been. I could still feel the brush of his bare skin against my hand. A single second. That was all it took. My palm hadn't recovered from the heat of it. Logan stood still, glass of water in hand, but his eyes were fixed on me. Not in that polite, detached way my husband looks at me when I ask about dinner plans. Not like family, not like a man about to marry my daughter. He looked at me like a man who was drowning in a room full of oxygen, and I was the only thing he wanted to inhale. You okay? He asked, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I nodded, but I knew I wasn't. My body was pulsing, not with panic, not even shame, just awareness. I was aware of every inch of skin showing, aware of how the neckline of my thin camisole dipped a little too low. aware of how long his eyes lingered before politely returning to mine. "You looked like you saw something," I swallowed, just thinking. He nodded. Me too. A silence spread between us, thick and humming. It didn't feel awkward. It felt dangerous. I looked down at his hand, still curled around the glass. His knuckles were tense, like he was holding back more than just words. "You can't sleep?" I asked, just to say something. He shook his head. "Not lately. Is everything okay with Mia?" My voice cracked slightly on my daughter's name. It made me feel guilty. Sharply. Immediately. His face shifted, not in surprise, but something more tired. "Yeah, I guess. She's been distracted, busy with work, with wedding stuff." I nodded slowly. "That happens." He hesitated. "You've been married a long time, right?" 22 years. He smiled faintly, almost sadly. "What does that feel like?" I paused. "Which part?" He looked down, then back at me. "The part where you stop talking, but keep living together." That landed somewhere I wasn't prepared for. I should have corrected him. Told him not all marriages were like that. Told him not to speak that way to his future mother-in-law. But I didn't. Because I knew exactly what he meant. I hadn't had a real conversation with my husband in months. Years, maybe, if I'm being honest. Most nights, we pass each other like ghosts in the same hallway. I stepped away from the sink and leaned against the opposite counter, arms folded, legs crossed at the ankle. Not defensive, not closed, just trying to survive the current between us. "You know," I said, "I used to be someone who got looked at." He looked up sharply. "You still are." I laughed softly. Not to dismiss him, but to protect myself. "I mean really looked at," I added. "Like I was wanted, like I was still alive." He didn't laugh. "Maybe they weren't looking hard enough," he said. My breath hitched. Something inside me tilted, shifted. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't playing. He was just seeing me. And I didn't realize how badly I needed to be seen. I crossed my arms tighter over my chest, suddenly aware of how sheer the fabric of my top had become under the kitchen light. "I should go to bed," I murmured. But I didn't move. He stepped closer. Just one step. But it was the kind of step that shattered the comfort of polite space. I could feel the warmth of his body again, the soft scent of him. Fresh laundry. Something slightly woodsy. His breath was calm, but his chest rose deeper now. Slower. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what?" "For looking at you like that." I swallowed. "Like what?" His voice dropped. "Like you're not off limits." My knees weakened. It wasn't the words. It was how gently he said them. Like a confession he didn't want forgiven. He reached for something on the counter beside me. A dish towel, I think. But his hand brushed mine in the process. I didn't pull away. His fingers hovered, waiting, and I let them stay. For the first time in years, I felt warm under someone's touch. Not tolerated, not routine, desired. Not a word passed between us after that, but something passed. And I knew, no matter how we tried to bury it, we had just stepped over something we couldn't uncross. Before Logan, I was invisible. Not in some dramatic, tragic way. Not like in movies, but in the slow, suffocating way that creeps in after 2 decades of being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's shadow. I don't know when it started. The forgetting. It wasn't a big moment. No dramatic goodbye. No slamming doors. My husband still sleeps in the same bed. Still eats what I cook. Still leaves his socks on the floor. But somewhere along the way, the space between us became wider than the house we live in. We stopped talking, but kept living. That's what Logan saw, I think, before I even knew I was bleeding. It was spring when Mia brought him home. She was glowing when she introduced him, standing in the doorway with her suitcase in one hand and her fiancé's arm in the other. "This is Logan," she said, eyes beaming. "Be nice, he's mine." I smiled, hugged him, said all the things mothers are supposed to say. He smelled like cologne and fabric softener, had calluses on his hands but spoke gently. His grip wasn't too tight. His eye contact wasn't performative. And when he looked at me, he looked fully, not down at his shoes, not past me. At me, it startled me, that feeling of being seen without being evaluated. No judgment, no flirtation, just full attention. I convinced myself I imagined it. We all had dinner that night. My husband made some joke about young love, and Mia rolled her eyes. Logan just smiled politely, but I saw the glance he gave her. Soft, adoring, proud. He was good, thoughtful, maybe too thoughtful. A week later, he helped me unload groceries. I didn't ask. He just followed me out to the car, grabbed the heavy bags, and carried them inside like it was second nature. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I know," he replied, "but I want to." And maybe that's when it began. Not with the glance, not even with the groceries. With that sentence, "but I want to." My husband never says that anymore. He does what's expected. He keeps the machine running, but the word want hasn't passed between us in years. Over the next few weeks, Logan found reasons to help, fixing the squeaky cabinet door, replacing a light bulb, offering to cook dinner when I looked tired. It was harmless. Completely harmless. But then came the small things. The things no one else noticed. Like how he remembered I drink tea, not coffee. How he'd make a second cup without asking, place it next to me, and walk away. Or how he paused when I laughed, just enough to really look, like he wanted to memorize it. That's what made it dangerous. Not what he did, but how it made me feel. The day I knew something had shifted, he wasn't even in the room. It was a Wednesday. Mia was at work. My husband had left early. Like always, with only a nod and a distracted, "Don't forget to pay the electric." I sat at the kitchen table, a mug of tea untouched, staring at a grocery list I didn't want to finish. Then I heard Logan in the garage, singing. His voice wasn't remarkable, just soft, a little gravelly, but it filled the house in a way nothing else had in months. And it hit me I was smiling, not because someone had told a joke, not because something good had happened, but because there was life in my house again. That's when the guilt flickered, small, like a faulty light. But guilt is funny. It doesn't need a crime to exist. It just needs an opening. That night, Mia teased Logan for helping me fix the washing machine. "She's got you doing mum errands now." She laughed. He just shrugged. She shouldn't have to do it alone. That sentence lodged in my chest. She shouldn't have to do it alone. I told myself he was just being kind. I told myself it didn't mean anything. But when I went upstairs that night, I caught myself checking my reflection in the mirror, longer than usual. And for the first time in years, I undid my hair before bed. It was a Saturday morning when I first caught him looking, really looking. I had just come back from the garden, hair pinned up messily, dirt still on my palms. I was barefoot, still in a faded old dress that used to hug me tighter years ago. He was sitting at this kitchen table, reading something on his phone, but the moment I stepped in, I felt it. The pause. His eyes lifted slowly, and they didn't drop right away. He didn't smile, didn't say a word, just looked at me for maybe 2 seconds too long. And in those 2 seconds, I forgot how old that dress was. I walked past him, pretending I didn't notice, but every part of me felt suddenly alive, hyper-aware. Every inch of my skin remembered what it meant to be seen that way, like a woman, not a role. I started lingering more, not on purpose, or maybe it was. If I finished dishes, I stayed by the sink a little longer when I heard his footsteps behind me. If I saw him alone on the porch, I brought him a glass of water and sat beside him, not speaking, just sitting. There was comfort in the silence with Logan. It never felt loaded. Not then. It felt safer than speaking. One night, I came downstairs for tea, He was in the living room alone, dim lamp casting soft gold across his face. My husband had already gone to bed. He never stayed up with me anymore. Logan looked up. His eyes found mine, then lowered to the blanket in my hands. "Cold?" he asked. "Just quiet," I said. I sat on the other end of the couch. We didn't touch. We didn't even look at each other again. But when he got up to leave an hour later, he folded the edge of the blanket over my lap before walking away. That simple gesture made my chest ache. He didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything. He just gave warmth, the kind that lingers even after the room goes dark. Sometimes he'd be in the kitchen when I came down early, shirtless, sweat clinging to his skin after a morning jog. I hated how often I noticed. The lines of his stomach, the way his voice rasped when he was still catching his breath. "Morning," he'd say, handing me the kettle like we were old friends. I'd nod. "Did you sleep okay?" And that was it. That's all it ever was. But my fingers always trembled a little more when I stirred my tea after those mornings. My chest always buzzed longer than it should. One afternoon, I heard laughter from the backyard. Mia was gone. My husband was at work. I peeked out the window and saw Logan with my old garden hose, rinsing off the patio. He was humming again, that same low, casual tune he always went to when he thought no one was listening. I stepped outside, arms crossed, smile tugging at my lips. "You planning to flood the whole yard?" He turned, squinted into the sun, and grinned. "You caught me." I don't know what came over me, but I reached out, flicked water at him from the edge of the hose. He laughed, real loud, boyish laughter that cracked open the air between us. Then, without thinking, he turned the nozzle on me. I squealed, as cold water hit my ankles. "Logan, you started it." We were both laughing then, wet and breathless in the golden sun. For a minute, I didn't feel 43. I didn't feel like anyone's mother. I just felt light, alive. Later that day, he passed me in the hallway. Both of us fresh from changing clothes. His hair was still damp. Mine smelled faintly of lavender conditioner. Our arms brushed. He didn't move away right away. Neither did I. We both paused. A full second, maybe two. Then he looked at me, not down, not past, but at me, and said quietly, "You looked happy out there." My breath caught. I said, softer than I meant to. His lips parted like he was about to say something else. But then Mia's voice echoed from upstairs, and just like that, the spell broke. He turned, walked away, and I stood there, heartbeat loud in my ears, wondering what was more dangerous, that he didn't say it, or that I wanted him to. It started slipping in during the in-between hours. Not morning, not night. Just those quiet spaces where no one was paying attention. I found him one afternoon crouched under the sink, trying to fix the leaky pipe that had been groaning for weeks. My husband had promised to call a plumber. He never did. I leaned on the doorway, watching Logan's shoulders flex under the cotton of his shirt as he worked. There was a soft grunt, a clink of metal, the muffled sound of water sloshing into a bowl. "You need a second pair of hands?" I asked. He looked up, smiling crookedly. "Only if they know how to hold a flashlight." I did. I knelt beside him, our arms brushing once, then twice, and neither of us adjusted. We worked in silence. Close, comfortable, too comfortable. I could feel the heat of his thigh near mine. The scent of him, clean laundry, citrus, maybe soap, floated between us. Not strong, just enough to notice. When he reached forward, his elbow grazed my chest. He froze. I held my breath. Our eyes met. He didn't apologize, and I didn't pretend it didn't happen. That night, I stood in the hallway outside his door. I wasn't sure why. I'd gone upstairs to fold towels, but found myself lingering near the guest room where he stayed. The door was cracked just slightly. I heard music playing low. something bluesy, smooth, unfamiliar. I hovered, just for a moment. Then his voice. "Can't sleep?" I jumped. No, I was just passing by." He opened the door a little wider. The light behind him was dim, warm. He was shirtless again, just in sweats. His hair tousled. My mouth went dry. "You can come in if you want." I didn't, but I did. I stepped inside, only far enough to lean against the dresser. He sat on the bed, legs folded, hands clasped. There was no chair to distance. He didn't look at me like I was doing anything wrong, and I hated that I didn't want to leave. We didn't say much, just sat there, music humming low, his eyes flicking to mine and away, mine doing the same. I saw him watching my hand once, the way my fingers curled around the edge of the dresser. His gaze was gentle, but it burned. I left before anything could happen, before even the idea of something could take shape. But the moment I closed the door behind me, I pressed my back to the wall and exhaled like I'd just escaped a fire or walked away from something I didn't want to survive. The next time it happened, we were in the laundry room. A storm had rolled in that afternoon, sudden, loud, and hungry. The power flickered once, then went out completely. The house was wrapped in dimness, windows rattling, wind pressing against the walls. I had just come down to grab folded towels. He was already there, barefoot, shirt clinging damply to his back, pulling clothes from the dryer. "You scared?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder with a small smile. I shook my head. "No, just restless." He nodded. "Me too." I moved to the other side of the room. We worked in parallel, folding shirts, stacking towels, pretending that silence wasn't stretching tight between us again. Thunder cracked so loud I flinched. He noticed. "You okay?" I nodded, but he stepped closer anyway. Not all the way. Just near enough that I felt the warmth of his body beside mine again. His hand grazed the edge of mine as he passed me a pillowcase. Just fingers, a brush. But it lit something in me I couldn't smother anymore. "I'm sorry," he murmured, "if I've made you uncomfortable." I looked up. His face was close, softer than usual. Careful. "You haven't," I said. Another roll of thunder made the windows shudder again. The lights flickered once more, then settled back into dim yellow. His eyes didn't leave mine. "You sure?" I nodded, slowly, earthily. And that was the moment. That invisible thread between us pulled tight, so tight I could feel it in my chest. He didn't move first. I did. I reached to take the towel from his hands, but my fingers didn't close around the fabric. They closed around him instead, his wrist. It wasn't planned, it wasn't right, but it wasn't innocent either. He didn't pull away. His pulse was steady beneath my touch, strong. I should have let go, I meant to. But I stood there, holding him, just long enough for him to understand that something had changed. Just long enough for me to admit. I wanted it to. He whispered, "We shouldn't." I know, but neither of us moved. Not when our arms brushed again. Not when my hand fell to my side, grazing the back of his. Not when he looked down at my mouth and quickly looked away. I don't know how long we stood there, but when my husband's voice called from upstairs, "Power's back," we both jumped like we'd been caught. We didn't speak. He walked out first. I stayed behind, staring at the dryer. My palms still tingled, and in that empty room, I whispered to no one, "I don't know how to stop this." The rain hasn't stopped for hours. It drums soft and steady against the kitchen windows. A lullaby too heavy to sleep through. The house is quiet. Mia is gone. Off to a bachelorette weekend she barely planned. My husband is upstairs. Lights off. Headphones in. I could disappear right now, and no one would notice. But he would. Because he already has. Logan sits at the kitchen table, elbows on his knees, fingers threading through each other like he's holding something fragile. I'm across from him, both hands wrapped around a warm mug I haven't touched. Neither of us says anything. But the silence between us, it crackles, hums, like something charged is sitting just beneath the surface of our skin. I glance at him. He's watching me. Not with hunger, with ache. His jaw tenses when I hold his gaze too long, like he's afraid of what I might see, or afraid I'll see the same thing he sees in me. I don't know how we got here, I whisper. He doesn't answer at first, just exhales through his nose, slow and heavy. I do. I shift in my seat. My heart isn't racing. It's tight, like it's being held too hard. We haven't done anything, I say quietly. He nods. But we've wanted to. My breath catches. That's the first time he's said it out loud. I can't look away from him now. And he's not blinking. I think about it, he says, voice barely there. When I shouldn't. When she's talking about the wedding. When we're at dinner. When you walk past me and don't say anything. I swallow hard. Don't tell me to stop, he says. Eyes locked on mine. Tell me and I will. I don't speak. He stands slowly, walks around the table, and stops in front of me. I tilt my head up. My hands are still wrapped around the mug, like it's the only thing tethering me to sense. But it's not warm anymore, and neither am I. Not until he steps closer, close enough that I can feel his breath, close enough that if I lean just an inch forward. Please, I whisper, but I don't know what I'm asking for. Space? Or surrender? His hand lifts. Not to touch, just to hover beside my face. He doesn't make contact. He waits. Waits for me to be the one who moves. And I do. I turn into his hand. My cheek presses softly into his palm. And the moment I do, something inside both of us breaks loose. His other hand cradles the back of my neck, fingers threading into my hair. I stand. And our bodies fall into each other like they've known how to fit forever. Please like and subscribe and follow this channel, Ladora70, for more stories like this one. His mouth finds mine like it's never belonged anywhere else. Soft, careful, like a question he already knows the answer to. I melt, not just into him, into the moment, into everything I've been holding back for too long, the years of silence. The nights I've laid beside a man who never reached for me. The days I've moved through this house like I was made of glass. It all dissolves under his touch. He deepens the kiss slowly. No rush, no claim, just reverence, like he's learning me one breath at a time. My hands slide up his back, fingers gripping the fabric of his shirt before slipping beneath it. His skin is warm, tighter than I expected, firm beneath my trembling palms. I gasp into his mouth, and he pulls back just enough to whisper, "Tell me no, and I'll stop." But I can't, because my body's already said yes. I guide him backward into the small laundry room, the same space where we've brushed shoulders, passed towels, pretended nothing was happening. Now it's where everything happens. The rain hammers against the window. The dryer ticks softly as it cools. The room smells like fabric softener, and something else now, something new, something alive. His hands are on my waist, then sliding up, slow, tentative, like he's afraid to move too fast and lose me. I tilt my chin, offer my throat, and feel his lips trace a line down the side, breath warm, uneven. I make a sound I haven't heard from myself in years. Something between a sigh and a moan. Something buried. His hands tremble when they lift the hem of my shirt. Mine do too, but neither of us stops. When his skin finally meets mine, bare to bare, it's not lust that hits me. It's grief. Grief for all the years I went untouched, unseen. Grief for all the times I convinced myself I didn't need to feel this way again. He lifts me gently, presses me back against the dryer, and rests his forehead against mine. We're both breathing hard, but it's not frantic. It's fragile. "I don't want to hurt you," he whispers. "You won't," I breathe, but I know we're already broken. He enters me like a prayer, slowly, carefully, fully. I close my eyes and let go of every reason I shouldn't be here. Let go of the woman I was, the wife, the mother, the liar. In this moment, I am only a woman, wanting, craving, taking. Our bodies move together in silence, save for breath and heartbeat, and the occasional whispered name. Mine, his. I'm not sure anymore. My hands are in his hair, on his back, tangled around everything I can't say out loud. He kisses me like he needs to remember it, and I let him. I memorize the way he tastes, the way his voice shakes when he says my name, the way he looks at me afterward. Not with regret, but with something so devastatingly tender that I can't breathe. We don't speak for a long time. We just lie there, tangled in the quiet, the dryer still warm beneath my back. I should feel ashamed, I whisper finally. He doesn't answer right away. Then softly, do you? I close my eyes. No, and that is the worst part. The next morning, I burn the toast. My hands shake as I scrape the black edges into the sink, pretending everything is fine. Mia hums upstairs. My husband types loudly in his office, slamming keys harder than necessary. The whole house feels louder now. Like it knows? Logan hasn't come down yet. I shouldn't care, but I do. I catch myself glancing toward the staircase, listening for his footsteps, wondering if he's avoiding me or waiting for me to speak first. My body still remembers the way he touched me, the way his breath trembled against my neck. I try to wash the memory off in the shower. I scrub until my skin flushes pink, but nothing fades the echo of his voice. I wrap myself in the thickest robe I own and sit on the edge of the bed, heart thudding. My husband passes by the open door, holding his phone. He doesn't look at me, doesn't notice anything's different. That should bring relief. It doesn't. It hurts. At lunch, Logan enters the kitchen just as I'm setting the table. We pause. His eyes meet mine, just for a second, and the air shifts again. I feel heat rise under my collarbone. He opens his mouth to speak, but Mia barrels in, laughing, waving her phone. And just like that, we're strangers again. I can't eat. I push salad leaves around my plate and nod when spoken to. Every nerve in my body is on fire, but no one notices. No one ever has, except him. When he clears his plate, our fingers brush. Just barely. My breath catches. His doesn't. He's too good at hiding it now. Later that evening, I'm folding towels in the laundry room, same as always. But nothing feels the same. The room still smells faintly like him. My hand lingers against the dryer where he held me, where I let him, where I wanted him. I close my eyes. Guilt crashes in like a wave. Sudden, bitter, choking. What have I done? I hear footsteps upstairs. A door opens, then shuts. Distant laughter from the living room. And me, I stand perfectly still, one towel clutched to my chest, heart beating like a secret I can't carry much longer. 3 days pass. We don't talk about it. We don't look at each other too long. We stay in separate rooms like the air itself has turned radioactive. But even distance has a sound. I still hear him, in footsteps, in drawers closing, in my heartbeat whenever I pass the room he sleeps in. I catch him once in the hallway, towels slung around his shoulders. Fresh from the shower, he pauses as I approach, gives a small but quiet nod. I nod back. Our arms nearly touch. Nearly, and that's the worst part now. The almosts, the pauses, the silences that stretch long enough to imagine filling. At night, I lie awake beside my husband, listening to the ceiling creak above, where Logan sleeps. I picture the way his breath felt against my skin, the way he held me like he was memorizing every second. I shouldn't think about it, but I do, over and over. I replay the way his mouth trembled against mine. I close my eyes and whisper his name into the pillow, just once, just to hear it. I hate how it makes me ache. Sunday morning, Mia finds me in the kitchen. She pours coffee, leans against the counter, then tilts her head at me. "You've been weird lately," she says, teasing. I freeze. "What do you mean?" She shrugs. "I don't know. Distracted, jumpy, like you're hiding something." I force a laugh. "Midlife crisis, probably." She doesn't press, but something flickers behind her eyes, something I can't name. Later, as I clear the table, Logan reaches to help. Our hands meet on the same plate. We both freeze. The sound of Mia's voice carries from the next room, humming along to the stereo. Logan looks at me, our hands still touching. I should let go. He should move. Neither of us does. Not right away. Just long enough to remember the last time we touched and how much it changed everything. He exhales first, withdraws his hand slowly. I feel cold where his fingers had been. I close my eyes and steady myself on the edge of the sink. This can't happen again, but deep inside, I already know it will. It happens in the middle of folding laundry. Again, Mia sits cross-legged on my bed, flipping through bridal magazines half-heartedly, not even pretending to care anymore. I'm matching socks, avoiding her gaze, pretending everything's normal. Then she says it. "I don't think I want to marry him." My fingers still. The fabric drops from my hands. "What?" I ask. My voice is too sharp, too fast. She shrugs, doesn't look up. "I don't know. Lately, but it just feels off, like I'm trying to make something work that doesn't quite fit." My stomach turns. I want to tell her she's wrong, but I can't because she's not. There's silence for a long beat. She finally looks at me, eyes soft. Have you ever felt that? Like you're with someone who loves you, but you don't feel it anymore? It's the kind of question daughters shouldn't ask, and mothers shouldn't have to answer. I swallow hard. "Yes." She nods slowly. "I thought so." That's all she says. That's all I can take. That night, I sit in the backyard, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sky turn dark. Crickets hum. The house behind me glows soft yellow through the windows, but I don't want to go back inside. I hear the door slide open, footsteps. Quiet, hesitant. He sits beside me, says nothing. We just sit there, shoulder to shoulder, not touching. But I feel him, every inch. "She told you," I whisper. He nods. "She's leaving you?" "I think so." Silence again. Then, "You should hate me," I say. "I don't." His voice is quiet, barely there. "She's your daughter." "I know. You're supposed to love her." I did. A pause. "I do," he adds. But it sounds tired, hollow. Then his voice breaks, just slightly. "But I saw you first. If this story made your breath catch, please like, subscribe, and share. New confessions every week at Ladora70. He leaves before sunrise. No note, no message, just silence and the sound of a car door closing too gently for the moment to feel real. I watch from the upstairs window, unseen, heart clutched tight in my chest. He doesn't look back, and I don't blame him. The house feels different after he's gone. Lighter, but not in a way that brings relief. More like something's been pulled from under the floorboards. Quiet, but structural. Mia doesn't cry. She doesn't rage, or plead, or chase after him. She simply sits at the table, staring at a half-eaten piece of toast, and says, "I think it's better this way." I nod. I want to comfort her. I want to scream. But I do neither. Because in some twisted, unbearable way, I agree. Days pass. The silence grows softer. The guilt hardens. I catch my husband watching me one night across the dinner table, brows furrowed like he's trying to remember who I used to be. He doesn't ask questions. Maybe he knows something. Maybe he doesn't care enough to. I walk past the laundry room one evening and stop cold. I don't go in, but I stand there for a full minute, hand on the frame, breathing in what's left of that night. Nothing smells like him anymore, except my memory. Weeks later, I find a sock behind the dryer. His I sit on the floor and hold it in my lap, like it means more than it should. It does. And I cry, not loudly, not desperately. Just enough to know the wound is still open, just enough to admit, I don't want it to close. Sometimes I dream about him. But it's never the night we crossed the line. It's the way he looked at me the first time, before guilt, before breathlessness, before I had to pretend I didn't want it again. I know what I did was wrong. I know I crossed a line I can't uncross, but I also know this. For one night, I felt wanted. Not out of duty, not out of habit, but because someone saw me, really saw me, and couldn't look away. That night wasn't about betrayal. It was about being alive, even if just once, even if I can never have it again, even if no one ever knows, but me. Thank you for watching. If this story left something aching in you, consider subscribing to Ladora70 for more true emotional confessions. Forbidden, haunting, unforgettable. New videos days. Like, comment, and share your thoughts below.